Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I am Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Check us out online at couplesynergy.com or on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn,
we know all the
and
ends.
Twitter at Couple Synergy. And please subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a review. Leave us a review, please, because it's very important. And send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couple Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 25 years.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about anger, and specifically the 12 anger styles that can harm or help your relationships.
Good anger.
Good anger.
And bad anger.
Good anger and bad anger. Also, just as a kind of reminder here, for those of you who are watching our podcast, it is a live stream, so you guys can send any questions and interact with us. Say hi. That would be cool, just to know who's out there listening, and also to let us know other topics that might be of interest to you. So we are talking about anger and anger styles, and there are specifically, when I'm doing research for this, there was specifically 12 that came up, and there are other lists that were 5
12
or 6.
12 apostles. 12 is a big number.
It's a very big number. But I thought that this would be a really kind of an important topic to talk about, since there is so much anger going on in the world right now.
I don't know if people are so identifying it as anger, if they know it's anger. So let's talk about them.
Well, okay. And so let's talk. Should I put this on the screen, or should I just talk about it? What do you think?
You're driving.
I'm driving. Awesome. Let's see if I can do that. See if I could share the screen, because that make it. No, I can't. All right. So I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it today. So the first anger style that we are going to talk about here is kind of like it's very watered down. It's irritation. I think we could talk about 1 and 2 together: irritation and frustration. All right. And irritation is kind of a low level form of anger. And it's like you're annoyed with something. It's a minor inconvenience, a minor annoyance. Okay. And how often we feel that? When I'm driving, I feel it all the time,
I think irritation is if you think about an irritant, there's already something there. And a lot of couples talk about this. They said, we don't really fight, but we bicker.
Yeah.
We throw jabs at each other, but we're not really talking about that irritant that makes us irritated. That is the more important thing. And so, irritation is something's bothering me and I'm coming out snappy, but I'm not actually addressing anything.
Yeah.
Where frustration is like, oh, I can't get this thing that I want to try to get.
I can't achieve something.
Yeah,
so
there's
it's
something
like
blocking me.
And there's like powerlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Might be your partner, which might be irritating.
Well, yeah, that's true. And over a course of time, just like water carves a canyon, it can really erode and shape your relationship in a very negative way, especially if a couple doesn't know how to deal with these frustrations.
Yeah. And I would say frustration is really specific. Like you're trying to get something done, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And either it's going to get done or you got to do something else, and it kind of goes away. Where irritation is that irritant sticks around.
Well, it's like the other day we were gonna head up to Grand Junction. We had a plan that these are the things that we needed to get done, and we just couldn't
Everything
get
got
it done.
in the way. Yeah.
Everything got in the way, and so it's just so frustrating.
Yeah.
The third one, though, this one impacts relationships a lot. This is resentment. All right. So resentment is maybe you have a lot of frustrations, maybe you have a lot of irritations, but you hold on to it.
I would say resentment is something you participate in unknowingly. And you do that because you learned a pattern in your family growing up where, maybe people just didn't talk about what they felt, or people complied, or they didn't have enough confidence in their own decision making that they allowed another person to kind of boss them around.
Yeah.
And they don't realize they're complying with it. So it's whenever you give up responsibility for something that's yours outside of yourself, then you can blame them. And that's where resentment comes. It's really something you're not owning.
Yeah. And part of that resentment is not necessarily just to other people or the thing, but it's also two-pronged, because you have resentment towards yourself,
right,
for giving into something, for complying when you didn't want to, right? Being passive about something, or keeping your mouth shut when it's something that you don't agree with.
And then, of course, if you have resentment towards yourself, you have to blame your partner, because that's what we do.
Exactly.
So you double the resentment and still directed at your partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
We never do that.
No.
We're so good.
Okay. We process things perfectly. The fourth style of anger is passive aggressiveness. And this is very, very popular. It's very trendy right now. Actually, I don't think it's trendy right now. Outward aggression is trendy right now.
Right.
Passive aggressiveness is something that we all know. Instead of expressing your anger directly at someone, this is where you use indirect behaviors, subtle behaviors. The next one is sarcasm, but I see sarcasm as also a form of passive aggressiveness, where you can actually use sarcastic comments, indirect ways to express your anger towards someone. The silent treatment is a great passive aggressive tool.
Yeah, the thing with passive aggressiveness is, someone's pissed. You just have no idea what they're pissed about or why they're pissed. It's very, very, very confusing. And it is our number one form of anger style, because it's the least vulnerable. So because nobody really knows what's going on and is confused, you don't really have to own why you're angry or resolve it. You just get to stay in that place of being nasty, basically. And it's very confusing to those around you. And then people kind of try to answer that with passive aggressive behaviors. And so then over time, that creates parallel lives where people just stop talking about anything that's really important, because this keeps popping up, and they get stuck in this loop and they really can't figure it out. This is the relationship dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before going on to the next one, I just was reminded myself that we have a group for couples that we hold. It's a virtual group.
Workshop.
Virtual workshop that we hold once a month. It's called Mastering Synergy. And that is held, I think it's the second Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. Central Time. And this is a way where we are able to, in these groups, we're able to talk more in depth about concepts like this, like the anger
we take
styles.
it to a personal level where we help you identify your style,
right,
and then identify your partner's style and watch how that dance operates. So that gives you more information and power and control over what you're doing, so that you can create something that's actually more effective, that resolves the anger, as opposed to, I think most of these anger styles don't resolve anything.
Yeah.
And they kind of protect your more vulnerable feelings, but you kind of just become a really crabby person, which really is really bad for your health.
And I'm just going
All
to
this
drop
stuff.
the link to sign up for that workshop right in the comments there. So if you're interested in joining us, I think what we are going to be talking about this next workshop is this more in depth about these anger styles and helping couples identify their anger styles, and then also kind of how to,
which is coming up this
process that.
Thursday. This Thursday is the next one.
So moving on. So we said passive aggressiveness or sarcasm. This is where people can express anger using humor or mockery.
Yeah, sarcasm usually happens publicly in front of other people, and everyone knows something is going on, but nobody really knows what. And it's really not nice.
Yeah, you'll hear this like in the form of a dig.
Yeah.
Like, the husband will do a dig to the wife or something in public with other people around, and it's like, oh, wow, that was really cringy.
Right. Even though nobody really knows what's happening, they
Yeah.
know there's an issue going on. And yeah.
The next one is explosive anger. And this is very scary to be around. It's usually accompanies someone with kind of a passive communication style where they keep everything to themselves and they just bottle all that up. They're not able to express their true feelings, and it usually results in the lid exploding.
Yeah, where someone completely loses control over their behavior. So anger is a natural feeling we all have. What we do with it, we have a choice with that. And explosive anger is someone who, probably earned really early on in life that the only way to really get anyone to hear you is to get to that level of something. It's very controlling. It's fear-based, and it is really toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very toxic.
If you're both exploding, then you're both hitting an iceberg. And ultimately, you can resolve that. If one person is explosive and the other person is not, that's a power struggle. That's a control issue that is turning one person into a hostage in that situation and the other person into full control. That's a very toxic pattern. If you're in that situation, please talk to people, because you don't see it when you're in it. And especially if you're the more passive person, over time, it'll kind of brainwash you and make you believe it's your fault, and it's your fault they lost their control. You probably had a parent who acted this way, and when it's parent-child, there's obviously a very different power dynamic. But in an adult relationship, this is really inappropriate and can be dangerous.
And it's not something that resolves on its own.
Mm-mm.
In fact, it actually gets worse over time because it becomes normalized in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, seek out help on this if this is in your relationship. The next one is even worse, and that is hate.
Hate is hardened anger.
There's a lot of hate going on in this world right now. And
hate is when you
really
believe
scary.
That someone else is 100% wrong.
Yeah.
And you stop seeing them as human.
And you vilify them for it. Right.
Yeah.
And that is, it is just, it's a cancer that eats us up from the inside out. Hopefully none of you are experiencing any of that in your relationship. But
If you do feel that you have a lot of hate in you, know that's about you. Know that's hurting you and hurting yourself, and know that there is a way out.
Mhm.
And get some help for that, because that's a tough one. It's a really bad one.
The next one is cold anger or manipulative anger. And this is scary in its own sense, because this person who uses this kind of style of anger, they are manipulative in a way, and they try to use anger in a controlled and calculated form to manipulate the other person. So this is where gaslighting would fall into this category here.
And this type of anger, the person really isn't emotionally attached to, and that's why it's so cold. It's so, the person at the other end of their anger, you might start to look like you're the crazy one. You're the one that's more out of control looking.
Yeah.
Because the other person is so frustrating. What they say isn't logical. It doesn't make sense. They're making up stories. That's the gaslighting part of it. And it's all done as manipulation. And as soon as the other person gives in, they snap and they're fine. And that's how you know they're not really emotionally invested, which is the cold piece, to their anger, but they use their anger as a weapon to control another person.
Very manipulative, very scary if you are on the receiving end of this. The next one is chronic or habitual anger. So when a person learns that the coping mechanism of dealing with uncomfortable, difficult situations is to become angry and to exude that anger because they're getting a response that they want.
Right. Their only reaction to everything becomes anger. Mm-hmm. And it can be the same reaction to something like somebody put something away in the wrong place, or someone stole money from that. I mean, like a huge range of
it's like
how bad something is.
It's the same response. Every stimuli, every issue that a person comes across. And, the anger in that case may have served a purpose in the beginning, maybe keeping people back, keeping people at a distance, or maybe getting a response from other people that, that they are now getting attention for. So it becomes reinforced, and then it becomes a habit. And so the person continues to use it.
It actually becomes physically addictive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the endorphins that get released from anger, put you on a high. People jones to have that feeling. So they get pissed off about everything, explosively pissed off.
And sometimes people go with chronic anger, they go looking for a fight.
Yep.
And it can lead to some long-term
they find an
health
offense
consequences
everywhere.
Right.
Everything is offensive.
So
for that reason.
Right. And those long-term health consequences are like high blood pressure, cardiac issues, digestion problems, cancer. Okay. So there is definitely a connection between the emotion and the physical ramifications of that.
Yep.
The next one is righteous or moral anger. This is kind of what we're dealing with in our world today.
Yeah, this unfortunately is based on low self-esteem. And low self-esteem says that I can't really justify my own feelings of anger. So I'm going to align myself with a cause or a group and make that group evil and my group is good. And I can 100% justify. I mean, the whole World War II is based on this. The entire war was based on hate, on hating, separating a group out, telling stories about them that made you believe that you could behave in a way that a lot of people behaved during that war. And when you're in that place, you feel so justified.
I am morally justified.
Yeah, I'm on the side of right.
And I'm also then, hate combined with moral anger Now that just it intensifies it even more, right? And it's not that there aren't any injustices or wrongdoings that's occurring. There definitely can be, but this anger takes it to a much more intense level, and they feel justified.
Well, it's often based on half truths. So someone will hear a piece of something, not know the full story, and run with that. And that is the way our brains are designed. Our brains are designed to see a potential threat and react immediately, and not calm down and get the full story, not try to understand the perspective of the other group, see them as inhuman and evil.
Yeah.
And that's what's really scary about it, is there's no way out, because there's no way to really have a conversation about it, because someone is, because of that low self-esteem and aligning with a group, which makes you feel good, makes us feel good to belong to something. And so we have to vilify a whole other group of people, and we have to be right, because either we're right and we're good, or we're wrong and we're bad, we're evil.
Yeah.
And it's a really scary thing, and it's really rampant because the way we get information is in sound bites now. So you're getting little tiny pieces of stuff
out of context, and
making full-blown decisions out of that, and you feel so ingrainedly connected and justified to doing it, which is why it's so scary.
The next anger style is constructive or assertive anger. And this is actually a positive. This is you're able to channel anger in a positive way to motivate positive change or to assert one's boundaries. This is where you're not okay with how you're being talked to or how you're being treated, and you assertively are angry, and you state your case. You say, I don't appreciate being talked to that way. It really makes me angry. And, I'm going to set a boundary because of it.
Right. It's a protective form of anger. If you think about anger like fire, and, fire is very useful. It can cook the bugs out of our food. It can warm our homes. It's very soothing to watch fire, or it can burn your house down and kill you. So anger also takes on that flavor of fire, which is very difficult to control. So when we're talking about constructive or assertive anger, we're talking about having a mastery over that emotion. Like, you feel it, but it's not dictating your behaviors, but it is dictating the courage to talk honestly and openly about whatever the issue is, so that you are not, in a position of being taken advantage of or boundary violations.
Mm-hmm. And the last anger style is self-directed anger. And, this is typically a person who is self-deprecating. They turn on themselves. And many people have heard that anger turned inward is depression, right? Because a person's beating themselves up. I mean, they feel a lot of guilt. They feel a lot of blame, or self-blame, I should say. And, I remember we were talking to a client where, as a kid, he made a mistake, and before anyone said anything to him, he was beating himself up repeatedly over and over and over again. Right. And in the Four Agreements talks about, we are the only species on the planet that beats ourselves up repeatedly over and over and over again for the same
single act
mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And this typically happens when you had a lot of this as a child. If your parents were out of control and they used a lot of statements like, you made me behave in this way. And is where we're trying to take ownership or responsibility for someone else's choices.
Mm-hmm.
And the thinking is logical. Like, if I don't get the outcome that I want, it must be something I did. It's just not true. And so this is one of where our brain is playing tricks on us, and it can be really dangerous, because if we do it often enough and we feel bad enough, it can lead to some serious mental illness and unhealthy behaviors, which I don't even want to say out loud. But if you're the kind of person and you hear this self-talk in your head where you think that you really are somehow broken and defective, those are lies. And what do we say about lies? Or fear?
Fear.
Fear is
Fear
a liar.
is a liar.
Right, Kip? Who wrote that song? It's a good song. Look up Fear is a Liar. And it's a tricky one because it's hard to find your way out of a lie if it's so ingrained in you. And it probably happened. You're probably hearing words that were said to you over and over again as a kid, still in your head as an adult. And really the only way out of that is to find another person to check that stuff out with, because we are innately as human beings kind and forgiving and generous unless we're in pain. And when we're in pain,
innately, we're born that way.
Yeah.
And you know, in order to go the opposite direction, we have to accept it. We have to learn it. We have to be taught, and we have to accept it and reinforce it. So, you know, it's really important for us to understand that anger is part of our plethora of emotions. They are natural and normal. They're things, they're emotions that we are supposed to have for survival. In fact, in utero, when a baby's developing, it develops from, you know, the back of the brain forward. And the first part of the brain is the reptilian brain that develops, automates everything in the brain and in the body. And then the next part of the brain to develop is the emotional brain. And that means that our emotions come first, before thought. And our emotions tell us something. They're like lights and you know, indicators on a dashboard that are telling us something is occurring and that we have to pay attention to. And anger is one of those indicators. We have to understand that it's telling us something. There's something we have to attend to, we have to deal with. And the more we ignore it, the worse it gets.
You know, and if you're interested in these topics and you want to join us for Mastering Synergy, we would love to have you. It is a great way to keep a forward momentum in your relationship. You know, it's so easy for us to slide back. And a lot of times where we see a couple for the first time, they're like, well, we've been here before and we got out of it before, but we went back. And Mastering Synergy is a way to not slide back and to keep moving forward and to keep your relationship in the forefront so that you can be happy and healthy like we are.
For those of you who are listening, you can just go to couplesynergy.com. There is a tab for the Mastering Synergy workshop if you wanted to join us that way. For those of you who are watching this video, you can just click on the link right in the comments and then join us for Mastering Synergy. Hey, look at that.
Hey, Steve.
Your cousin's saying hi. Hi.
How's it going?
Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. So we are just going to close out here. If you guys have any questions about anger styles, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. We want to thank you for joining us today on Couple Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships. And this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. We do Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live, and Twitter Live every Monday. So join us with your questions or just to say hi.
Sometimes we can't make it at the same time like tonight, but we should put that somewhere. Did you do that?
Typically, it's at 6 p.m. Central Time. For all of you listening to our podcast, you know, please let us know how you enjoyed the show. You can access our podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts, iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts, or even Stitcher. If you have any questions or comments or topic suggestions, please, again, email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs, such as Relationship 101, the home study course, the Couples Relationship Enhancement Weekend, and our premier coaching program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.